I remember just sitting in that cell thinking I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail. It made me truly value and appreciate life and every little thing that we tend to overlook. I knew in order to have a shot at redemption, I had to be sober. I wouldn't change a thing, and that sounds crazy, but it gave me everything I have today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Making a Man. Today, we have Mr. Sean Crane with us, and we're super excited to have him on. So, Mr. Crane is a TEDx speaker, a best-selling author, and a fitness expert. He works with men to elevate their performance in their personal and professional lives. Mr. Crane, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, hey, I'm happy to be here. Great intro,
Yeah.
Axel. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for coming on. We've
Yeah.
been excited to have you.
So, you mind just telling us a little, about your background and how you came to where you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy journey for me, a long journey. I'm 37, and so at this moment, life is really amazing for me. My company, Unstoppable 365, that I founded, we do health and performance coaching for business owners and men. And I have 4 beautiful children, married to my amazing wife. Just really right now, I'm living the life that I always envisioned and wanted. But it wasn't always that way. I grew up in Santa Barbara, California, which is a really cool beach town and community. And, there's a lot of affluence here. There's a lot of opportunity. And so growing up, I was in love with sports, man. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I played all sports pretty much, basketball, football, baseball, and I like to surf a lot. I was always at the beach and just always full of dreams and hope. And just a great, I was a good kid, man. I had a lot of fun in life and I felt like I could do whatever I set my mind to. But I come from a background where my parents were battling addiction, and my family had a lot of demons. My dad had a big family. He's one of 9, and a lot of my uncles, they suffered from addiction and they had demons they couldn't overcome. So I saw that part of life early on. At age 10 was the first time I saw my mother overdose from drugs.
Whoa.
And so, Axel, I know you're young, but I'm going to be as transparent as possible because it's going to all tie into why I do what I
Mhm.
do. And I'm hoping that you and the listeners can have some takeaways from what I went through. But at 10 years old, I mean, Axel, how old are you?
13.
You're 13. So,
Mm.
like 10 years old to see that happen, it was really scary for me. And like my world went from being like bright and sunny, full of abundance, and unlimited opportunity to like dark and cloudy and scary. And I became pretty like a nervous kid. I was always, like mediating between my parents when they were arguing and when there was stuff going on at home. I was the oldest kid of 3, and I was caught in the middle of it. And so that led me to a life of addiction eventually. I went through a lot of hardships. And this is a really important message for young people. Like early on, when you go through painful situations, maybe you come from a broken home like I did. Maybe you lack some confidence and you don't feel sure of yourself. We seek to numb that feeling out. It's something that all human beings do. Some people choose food, maybe it's video games or phones. Other people might turn to substances, smoking weed, drinking alcohol. I mean, the stuff is out there, and then for me
Yeah.
at 13, 14, realizing I could numb out all that pain, that was the only thing I thought I could do to survive, man, because I was a kid. I couldn't tell my parents what to do and get them to act right. I felt hopeless. And that turned into 10 years of addiction, and what really like the catalyst for this all those events leading up to when I was 14, my dad ended up going to prison. And then my
Wow.
mom and her addiction, she just lost herself, man. She abandoned me and my family. And that's when I just didn't know how to cope. And so I went from this kid who wanted to be a professional baseball player, and I was good. I was a shortstop. I loved baseball. I was athletic. I had the ability. I never played sports in high school. I really kind of stopped going to school, found myself hanging out with kids that were going through similar things as I was. And, we were getting in trouble and making bad decisions. And so from 14 to 24, that was my life. It was just addiction, survival. And it was very tough. Like every day it just felt miserable. And again, the only thing I found that worked in that moment was to numb out my pain. And I know a lot of young people at that time who were going through similar things, and they died. You know, they accidentally overdosed or got into some situation, and it was horrific, man. And then to top it all off, at the age of 23, I ended up going to prison. I was at a college party where there was a bunch of kids drinking. You know, we were chasing girls. I was just wild and having fun. I wasn't like a bad person. You know, people didn't know that I was going through the stuff I was going through. I was pretty good at coping and masking it and putting on a
Hmm.
front. And that night, a huge fight broke out, and I was right there watching it. And for all you young men listening, like, you're going to go to parties and guys drink and they end up fighting. You know, they end up trying to see who's bigger, stronger, and tougher. And it happens. And I had been in so many of those situations where we ended up just going home that night and it was over, and you know, maybe you have a black eye or, you know, a busted lip, but nothing serious. But that night, two guys brought weapons to a fist fight and ended up assaulting a group of guys. And I was caught in the middle of it. I was wrestling around with people. I thought I was getting jumped and attacked because it went from, you know, 4-on-4 to a whole group of people fighting in pretty much in the dark out front of someone's house. And so people were just getting beat up, jumped, thrown around. And I was just fending for myself. Ends up that I was wrestling around with a guy that was stabbed, and his blood was on my shirt and on my face. And people saw me standing up covered in blood, and this individual didn't get up. And they assumed that I did it. You know, everyone ran and we were terrified. And when the cops got there, they they said, "Hey, we saw this guy Sean wrestling around with so and so. We saw Sean on top of him, or you know, on the side of him, or whatever, running away." So the cops thought that I was the person who committed the stabbing, and I
Oh,
didn't, and I didn't do it. And
God.
the details, and I wrote this. Let me show you my book. I wrote a spoiler alert. It gets better, but I wrote a book called Prison of Your Own. I'd recommend anybody that's going through tough times, if you have demons, if you struggle with finding yourself and finding your path in life, you should grab a copy. It's on Amazon. I talk about the incident and the details of that incident, my upbringing. And then I talked about what happened after, and we'll get into that. But so at 23, I was arrested the next day at gunpoint and charged with attempted murder. And I was put
whoa.
in county jail, and I was facing life in prison.
Oh, Sean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Holy.
I mean, when I tell the story, it feels surreal. It feels like a different person or a different life, because I'm so far removed from it. But talk about going to rock bottom, man. Like,
Yeah.
sitting in a jail cell at 23, and I was in a cell for 24 hours a day. You know, for the first 6 to 8 months, I very seldom left that cell. I would go to court and get bad news and come back heartbroken over and over. Every once in a while, they'd let you up to a yard to work out. It was just another room that was just cement. It was just a bigger cell. So I was confined, man, and pretty much like in solitary confinement for 6 to 8 months at that time. Um, and that's when the magic started to happen in my life. You know, it gave me the opportunity when I initially got over the shock and awe and the woe is me and why is this happening to me? Like, life's unfair. It gave me the opportunity to honestly reflect on myself for the first time ever. You know, it gave me the opportunity to think about my upbringing and my parents and my decisions, though. And I started to take accountability for the fact that I chose to do drugs. I chose to neglect school. I chose to make decisions. Even though I was going through such a hard time, I still had the ability to make different decisions, and I did it. And in a sense, that was liberating because I went from being a victim of things that I felt were outside of my control to someone who recognized no matter what we're going through, we still have the capacity to potentially overcome things and make better decisions. And, you know, I remember just sitting in that cell thinking I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail. And it made me truly value and appreciate life and every little thing that we tend to overlook. You know, like all the little moments, man, started to stand out to me. And I went through, you know, for lack of a better term, a spiritual awakening in that
Hmm.
cell. Like, I came to believe the only thing that saved my life was believing that God was intervening, and somehow, some way, you know, it could potentially get better. It could be
Yeah.
okay. Uh, because otherwise I would get up every day and just think, "Oh my gosh, no one believes me. They're accusing me of a crime I didn't commit. This can't be real." why is this happening to me? Like, and that thought process was horrible. I was just feeling worse and worse every day. And, people take their lives in those situations. Like,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people right now in life wake up and they have negative thoughts, and those thoughts control their emotional state, their thoughts throughout the day, and the way they behave, like what they do in their lives. And so this is when I really started getting focused on how to control my mind. And for me, it was changing the way I was talking to myself, changing the questions that I was posing upon myself. Instead of why is this happening to me? Like, why does no one believe me? I started thinking, well, what if this experience could help me get sober? And I potentially am going to have my life saved from an accidental overdose or a lifelong addiction that just plagues me. Like, what if this experience could help me get sober? Or what if this experience could get me away from all those toxic relationships and I get to really discover who I am as a person, you know? And then the big one was just, what if this is a blessing in disguise and God's intervening in my life and I have a purpose and there's something bigger that I can't see or understand right now in my future. And that, man, that started to give me a little hope each and every day. And I just clung to that hope. I started realizing the way I was thinking was affecting how I was feeling. And then when I was feeling a little more hopeful, a little more optimistic, it led to me looking around that tiny little cell, thinking, what can I actually do in here to better myself today? Instead of sitting in here dreading what's taking place, how can I capitalize on this? How can I be productive? And so I started working out every day. I started reading a lot of books. And man, I felt this shift take place inside of me. I started going to sleep at night feeling proud of myself. I just
Yeah.
did 1,000 push-ups,
Yeah.
started off
Yeah.
with 100, then 300, then 500. And now I'm doing all these push-ups and burpees, and now I'm reading. And I became so infatuated with the fact that I can actually improve in these circumstances. I'm getting stronger, man. I'm reading these books and my mind's coming alive. Here I was, a guy that was just in the midst of his addiction for so long. I wasn't working on myself. And that gave me the feeling that I could potentially turn my incarceration into a positive experience. And I'll pause there if you guys if you have any questions.
Yeah, Sean, I have a question. That's so incredible, man. I'm like on the edge of my seat here. I'm thinking when you're in that cell, it's one thing, first off, the fact that you weren't a victim, like it got to be so easy to be like, woe is me. Then you turn one of the worst experiences you've ever seen into something that like a catalyst that made you better. But was there something that you read or something that stood out? It's one thing to think, I got to change this. I'm going to use this to my advantage. But then to not have a plan or a structure around it, was there something that you did or something that you read while you were in there that really clicked and stuck with you?
Well, I'll get into that in a second, the literature,
Okay.
but what it really was the
Mm,
regret. So
mm,
when I sat in my cell and the first couple months, all I could think about was that I never played sports in high school. Like,
Huh.
I never went after my goals and dreams. I was trying to make sense of my life. And
Wow.
let's say it was all over. It was similar to like having cancer and knowing you're going to die and you're in the hospital. That's the only way I could describe it. And you're replaying your life and you're trying to look at
Yeah.
good and find the blessings and you're trying to like basically find a reason that your life was valuable. Like, oh, I did this, I did that. And for me, nothing stood out. The only thing that I could point to that I was proud of was that I graduated high school, but I didn't even really earn that. I mean, I did. I went to a continuation school for 2.5 years. They gave me a bunch of credits. I went back my final semester and I got to walk and get my diploma. But I didn't feel like I earned it. I didn't like seize that time of my life. I didn't play sports. I should have been going to college, man. Like I should have been on my
Yeah.
way to being in the minor leagues one day and potentially a professional athlete. And I was just so heartbroken because I saw the version of myself that I had existed as, and it was so much different than the person in my heart I wanted to be.
Hmm.
Like it was I was a shadow of the person I knew I could truly be. And that regret was devastating me and I couldn't go back and change it. And I had to sit in that pain and feel it, and it did something inside of me, man, that changed me forever. It made me realize how short and precious this life is. And in that moment, I didn't want it to be over. I was like, this can't be the end for me. And I made
Yeah.
2 promises to myself in that moment. The first one was that if God gave me a second chance, or no matter how much time I spent in prison or what happened to me, I was going to be my true self, like my authentic self. And I was going to give my all to everything I did going forward. I didn't care if it was push-ups in that cell, reading books. I started looking up words in the dictionary just to be productive in my cell. And just like a kid in school, like, you probably do this, right? You get a vocab list, you study it, you take a test at the end of the week.
Yeah, do
I
that.
was doing that myself in my cell. I was memorizing these words and I quizzed myself on 'em. Like it just lit this fire inside me. And so that was the first commitment and promise I made. And the second one was that I was going to be sober for the rest of my life. Because I knew in order to have a shot at redemption, I had to be sober. It took my family away. It ruined my life. I saw so many people perish to their addiction. And that was 14 years ago. I've been sober ever since. So I started making these internal commitments and promises to myself, stemming from knowing that pain of regret when you don't do what you should do in your life. And that's what started to drive me each and every day. It was like making things right, getting as far away from that regret as possible. So every day I just started being extremely productive and focused on my personal growth and development. And honestly, it was God. Before going to prison, I used to mock the concept of God. I just felt so alone in life. I didn't think that there was a higher power. I didn't feel a connection to God. I didn't grow up going to church or anything like that. But that experience and what I was feeling shift inside of me helped me to find faith. It helped me to become a believer in my higher power in God. And I just surrendered and said, God, if you're real, please strengthen me and guide me through these days and help me to overcome, help me to learn. Like your will be done, not mine. I look at what my choices got me. Like look at what,
Yeah,
and I was broken down. I was so broken down and humble, and humbled through that experience that I became willing to do whatever it took to be a good person first and foremost and do the right thing. And that became the foundation of my journey and my growth as a person.
wow, wow, that's unbelievable. I have a
Wow.
question, Ax.
Yeah, yeah. So what would you say in your eyes is like the best advice that you've ever received from anyone?
Gosh, that's a really, really good question. It's hard to pinpoint one thing. I mean, I go back to my
Yeah.
time of incarceration. Growing up, I didn't have good role models as parents, but I had a guardian angel in my uncle Mike. He was my dad's oldest brother. He lived with us from the time I was young all the way until I went to prison. He was always there, protecting us, providing security, love, and like I had an example of what a good man was. I knew when my time came to change, those seeds were planted, and I knew what to do, and I definitely knew what not to do. And he came to the county jail right before I was shipped off to prison, and he told me the fable of Sisyphus, the Greek. I think it's a Greek
Mm,
fable of
mm,
Sisyphus, who's condemned to push a boulder up the side of a mountain every day, right? And he's like, Sean, you got to push that rock. The moment you let up, that boulder is going to crush you. And that's a metaphor for life, man. If we're not willing to get up and work on ourselves and do the right thing, that weakness starts to corrupt our potential. And at any moment we can fall back into addiction or make a bad choice that changes our lives forever. And if it doesn't get to that extent, maybe you just live a life of mediocrity and you go through your whole life and then you look back and go, what? That's what I gave to this one chance I had. That's the effort I put forth. So for me, it was symbolic of every day getting up ready to fight for what's right, work hard, be honest, and do the right thing. And that really stood out to me at that time.
That's great.
mm.
Are there you had a episode, I think, on a podcast where you talked about there was a line that you said, "Life happens for you, not to you," and that was really powerful to me. Can you maybe explain to the listeners and to us, really what you mean about that and the concept behind it?
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that one before. Life happens for you, not to you. It's a mindset, man. You
Yeah,
can go through any given day and look at the negative aspects of life and you could dwell on things that aren't going your way and you could be pessimistic and that's not going to serve you. That's going to make things worse. But if you look at everything that you go through, failure, setbacks, hardships, and you ask yourself, well, how can I learn and grow through these circumstances? Like, what can this teach me? That mindset, number one, you're going to be more positive going through things. Secondly, you learn way more through your struggles and perceived failures than anything else in life. And so with the right attitude and mindset, you're not going to let situations stop you from going after your goals and dreams, right? If life's happening for you, everything's in your favor, the good and the bad. You either win or you learn. You don't lose, right? That's what I tell people. I never lose. I either win or I learn. because of my mentality. So like right now, if a bunch of bad stuff happened in my life, whether it was to my family, me, maybe business stuff, I'm not going to sit here and freak out and go, woe is me. Life is horrible. Everything's ruined. I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask myself, like, how can I learn and grow from this? What is God teaching me? And that's life happening for you. It's a mentality. Most people have the life happening to me mentality, and that leads to feeling like a victim and you feel hopeless, like you can't do anything to change circumstances.
Sean, I think a lot of people in their life have situations like you were in that could have went another way, and it's not like I remember situations in my life where you're like, "What?" I'm trying to teach. Like, how do you have this discernment about you? Are there lessons in there? Like, if you're in a situation where you're starting to question what's going on, is it better to get out of there, or like, what advice would you have looking back on that night that was actually changed your life, but it was so devastating there? Could you provide any insight there?
Yeah, I mean, we could always look back and go, "Oh, I
Yeah,
could have not gone to the party. I could have not been doing so much drugs and drinking." At this point, I wouldn't change a thing, and that sounds crazy, but that
interesting. Yeah,
it gave me everything I have today, you know?
yeah.
So, we could always look back and think, "I wish I would have done things differently," but more importantly, it's, "What did I learn from that that I could use going forward?"
Hmm. I like that perspective. That's good.
So, what would you say is the best morning routine to stay focused all day?
I love that. In jail, I started getting up really early because, well, when I got to prison, you're in a place where you don't have a lot of privacy at all. You live in a small concrete box with another human. Like, go into a small closet or bathroom and picture living in there for 20 hours a day with another person.
Whoa.
You're using the bathroom in there, you're trying to coexist, and then you'd get out and you'd be amongst a bunch of inmates. And it's a crazy place. You're with violent people and people that have done horrible things. So I started getting up early just so I could have some peace and quiet. And I started this morning routine where I would focus on, gratitude. I'd think about my family. I'd picture them doing amazing things in their lives. I'd picture all their faces. I would just center myself around anything that made me feel good about life and people I love. And I would pray to God for strength and guidance through the day and the ability to be a good person and make good decisions. And I would just have this morning meditation that I started my day off with. And then that led to me writing stuff down because I would be so full of inspiration one morning, or I'd have ideas and I'd write down goals for the future. Or I'd write down things I was working on in the present. So I started doing that every morning. And that morning process I still have to this day. I get up early and now I have 4 kids. And if I don't get up early, I'm jumping up and I'm getting lunches ready and getting them ready for school, and it's chaos. And for me, like, that triggers me. I need a little solitude to get my mind right, my energy right, my focus right for the day. So I think having quiet time for at least 30 minutes, no phone, no emails, you get up and you check in with yourself and you focus on who you want to be that day. That allows you to live intentionally, right? A man with a plan can accomplish anything, but a guy that just wakes up reactionary, he's at the mercy of the world around him. And so this is what I learned in jail. So I think for anyone listening, having a morning routine is one of the most important habits you can establish because it sets the tone for the entire day. And you're programming your brain. If you get up early and you're thinking about who you want to be and you're seeking guidance from God or whatever you believe in, or just focusing on the good you can do in your day, and you're writing it out, you're being intentional, you're way more likely to do those things or at least have them on your mind going through your day. And it just gives you this extra level of clarity and focus if you consistently do that.
When you're working with someone, you work with a lot of leaders to help them get in better shape physically as well, right? That's a big part of what your work entails. Is Are there certain things that you try to instill in them? Because that's a journey that lots of people start on and they don't finish. Probably like a lot of other things in their life. Is there one thing that you work on with them to kind of stick to this thing?
Yeah, well, it's an identity shift. Anybody
Yeah.
can follow a 90-day program or 75 hard and get results, but can you do it for 7 years, 17 years, 30 years, right?
Mhm.
The difference between a guy who stays consistent and one who doesn't is their identity. The guy who's inconsistent still identifies as his old self. And it's his standards for whatever reason, he's okay with that. Like, he's okay with that. I was in jail for 5.5 years. No one saw what I was doing, no social media, no coach, nothing. And I did the work every single day in the dark because I knew one day it was gonna allow me to shine in the light. I knew I was gonna get a second chance, and I wasn't gonna waste it. And for me, those daily routines, like my morning routine, my exercise routine, I felt so good about myself. At the end of the day, when I look back on all the things I did, I'm like checking these boxes, man. It didn't matter if I was in prison. I was productive. I was disciplined. I was building this esteem inside of myself. And over time, like that became who I was. My routines aren't routines, it's who I am. That morning routine I shared with you, my training, everything, the way I eat, it's who I am, you know? And yeah, so for the leaders that I work with, majority of them are business owners, and they're holding everyone accountable, but they don't
Yeah.
have anybody else to hold them accountable to a high degree.
Interesting. Yeah,
So
that's true.
it has to be a shift in their mindset and a shift in their standards and ultimately their identity. And there's nothing really like physical activity, like working out really hard, that can change someone so drastically, because you have to take control of your self-talk. You have to, try to be more positive to get through those tough routines. You develop discipline, and ultimately, if you're consistent, you develop such a powerful self-belief. Like if you go to the gym in the morning and do an intense workout, everything else throughout the day seems a lot easier because you just put yourself through something that was very difficult to start your day.
Mm, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Does.
So, what are some of your goals like as of right now?
As of right now, be a very present father. I see how
Mhm.
quick my children are growing up. Like you see, right? My oldest is 15. Then I have 6, 5, and 1. So I have 4 kids. I get to go to all their school events, field trips. Like my daughter Scarlett has a field trip tomorrow. I haven't missed one of her field trips. I take them to school with my wife every morning. We do a drop off routine. I walk them to class. For me, that's so important because I'm also growing a successful business. My goal is to take my health and fitness company, Unstoppable 365, to an 8-figure company. We're doing 7 and multiple 7 figures right now. And so I don't want to be one of those guys who looks back and go, yeah, I had a successful business, but I wasn't present for my children.
Yeah,
So a lot of it right now is doing what's been working for me and soaking up this life and creating unforgettable memories with my family.
I love that. Unforgettable memories with your family. Sean, this has been great. Can you just highlight areas where listeners and other folks that we know might be able to get in touch with you? If you could rattle those off, we'll put them as links in here as well.
Yeah, my coaching company is Unstoppable 365. So you can visit unstoppable365.com to see the work we're doing, how we help our clients. We do mindset, fitness, nutrition coaching, as well as blood work and supplementation to really amplify performance. So that's focus, energy, and
Huh.
ultimately the results they get, right? So it's really cool because doing blood work, you could really see what's taking place inside someone's body
Huh.
and help them fix their health and stuff. So and then you can reach out to me on Instagram, Sean, it's SEAN _Crane _official, or Facebook, Sean Michael Crane. And follow me, check out the content, send me a message if something resonates with you. I answer all my messages, and I love to connect with people, and I want to see everyone thriving and living their ultimate life.
That's awesome. I love that. We will certainly connect right after this, both of us, and then we'll encourage everyone else to do it. Sean, this has been great. Thanks for telling us about your story and giving us some great words of wisdom. We
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Really do. Thanks. That was so good. Thank you so much for
That was
that.
really good.
Yeah, what a story, man. What a story. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey, man. We barely scratched the surface, but it's been 14 years in the making, and I'm just grateful every day that I get this second chance, and I want to bring that energy and that passion into everything I do and help people.
Well, listen, man, we just met over a video call, but I don't say this often, but I'm so proud of you, man. Like that journey is really incredible. It's going to stick with me for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. We appreciate your time, man. Thank you
Mhm.
so much.